So it says tutorial, but you don't have to do it that way. You can just go for drawing it. If you need help, then you can go through the tutorial a little bit to see what's going on. They use layers, and I'm not going to go with layers yet. So there's no real reason to use layers until you get a more complicated drawing. So this is a pretty simple drawing, but that's the one I'm going to work on. It's metric. At least my guess is it's metric. I'm not sure they actually said that. And they use the ACAD DWT template, so I don't know what they set that up. Anyway, I'm going to do metric with it because it makes sense with the like a 105 dimension. All right. That one. So I set this up as a metric. I started with the ACAD ISO template. So remember, that's when you go new, should already be highlighted because that's what I'm using. That means metric. So I'm just going to draw it first. Just start to draw. You don't have to worry about getting it onto the paper until after you've got something drawn. Once we've got something drawn, then we'll go to layout and try and figure out the appropriate scale before we dimension it. So draw it first, get it onto your paper so you know that you like it on the paper, then dimension, right? We're going to use paper space to figure out the scale. It'll figure it out for us. All right, so I would probably just start at the bottom, that 60 unit, it's on page 147. So it's 60 units across the top, it's 10 units up. And then it comes across. So I have all my horizontal vertical activated, so it's pretty easy to draw that kind of a structure. This inner arc is 55. So I'm going to try to locate that center. The outer arc is 105. So it's 50 units between. So you have to do like a little math. It's 50 units between the inside arc and the outside arc. So that's 60 wide. So that means it's like 5 units in, which it actually gives us that dimension, 5 units in. So since I know that, I'm going to draw from this. So this is where you can use construction lines. I'm going to draw from this corner over 5, and then I'm going to draw out to pick up this radius of 55. So I have to put like a construction mark out here because I really don't know where to put my circle. I know I want my circle to be a radius of 55, but like I can't get it in the right spot unless I give myself a construction line. So you could just go, since we know it's 5 in and it's a radius of 55, then I could just go 50 from here and that would give it to me, right? So I go line 50. So that should be the center, because if you add the 5, then we're at 55, and then that's the right arc. So then I can go circle here and put in a radius of 55. So that's probably the easiest way to get these arcs in, is just big circles, and then we'll trim them up. So if I then draw a line up, right? So a lot of construction activity here, but that should be then the arc that I want. And I can trim it up. So there's the inside arc. I want to talk about a few extra commands that are super handy that we haven't done yet. One of them's offset, and it's here. Offset looks like kind of two shapes that are similar but have different radiuses. Offset will take an object and make a copy, but it'll keep the properties. So an arc will stay an arc, a line would stay a line. So if I go offset and I just type in OFF and it shows up, it wants to know the offset distance, and that's the distance between the objects. So it's going to give you a copy with a distance between. So the distance that I want between is between the 55 and the 105. That's 50 units, 50 millimeters. So when you do that, you hit enter, it's going to ask you to select the object. So that's this object. And then the side that you want to offset to. So you can offset to this side or you can offset to this side. And it depends on where you put your cursor. I want out here, not here. So out here. And you just pick and it does it. And it stays in the offset command to do more. So if you needed another one at another 50, you could just keep going. Right? We don't need that. Right there. Doesn't give you a name with it. It just gives you a symbol offset. It's going to be in the modify toolbar, but I don't know beyond that on a Mac. Yeah, you find it? Yeah. So I just made a bunch of them. I don't need those. I'll get rid of them. But it does stay in the command until you hit escape. Once you hit escape, then you're out. So I'm going to do it again for the hidden lines, and I'm going to do it for the center arc. So there's hidden, and there's a center. It looks like those are, again, 5 units difference, right? 105 to 100 and 55 to 60. So that's 5 millimeters. So I'm going to go offset 5 millimeters and then choose this one and send it that way. This one, send it that way. So all I have to do now is switch those to hidden line type, and that's going to work good. I want one for the center also. So that's a little, I don't know, more math to figure out, but you want the difference between 100 and 80. So that's 20, or 60 and 80, that's 20. So it's from this inside one. So I'll do offset again, 20. And go here. So that's all the line geometry, right? We just have to get it to the correct line type. It's like the center line is a center line, and then the 2 outside lines are hidden. It does look like these go all the way through, so I need more lines going here for this hidden line, and that would be a straight there and there. And then I need to complete this up here. So I know it's 60. I'm going to assume this is the same dimension as this lower piece. So that means from this center, I could go up 30, over 10, down 60, over 10, and then take it back up to the center. Something like that. And then get those little hidden lines extended across. Oops, you can tell I screwed that one up. It's not an angle. All right, so let's review how to get line types and how to make them work, and then think about their scale, all that kind of stuff. So this is the way I do line types. I just draw the lines in and then switch them to what I want. I don't go, if the drawing's super complicated, I don't go very far before I do this. So I want all of these to be hidden, right? So it's good to get them all kind of drawn first, and then you can do them all at once. So that's this dialog box up here that has these little line types next to it. Pull it down, you've got none loaded, so we have to go to other and load. So since this is a metric, I'll use this ISO dash. I don't think there's an ISO hidden. They don't call it that. Yeah, I don't see an ISO hidden. So we'll just do this dash. So that just loads it. Now I got to select these things again. A little premature with my selection. But now it should be there to switch it, which looks pretty good, but these little lines, they're not showing up as hidden. So AutoCAD will do this. This is a hidden line because when I click on it, I see that it's hidden. Like the property tells me it's hidden, but it's just not being displayed because the line type scale is just too big. These dashes are so big that it just fills this whole thing. So I need to shrink those down a little. So I'm going to choose all my hidden lines because those are the only ones I really need to manipulate. And then go to properties, which was a right click on a grip, and then properties, and then line type scale, which is 1. So I'll try 0.5. So that works. These look good. I'm not sure if they're showing up here or not. So I'm going to go a little smaller. 0.3. Oh, I like that. It's going to get a little busy, but let's see how that works. So changing the line type scale then makes it show up like that. And I need this to center line. So the same process. You got to load the line type first. So up, go to line type, go to load, and we're looking for a center line, which I think is this long dash, short dash thing. It's the closest thing I see in the ISO for center line. You can use these other ones, you know, the US versions. That's fine too, but I'm going to use this one, see how it works. And it's right there. So now it should be loaded. I should be able to grab this and turn it into a center line. It actually looks pretty good. So then I'll extend that thing because theirs is extended. So center line is less important that they actually show up as a center line. So you can leave it like that. You don't have to change those small lines into dash lines. Looks like they did switch it and they have theirs tighter than mine. So if I wanted it to look just like the books, I'd have to change that line type scale of all this. So I'll do that. It's good practice. Go to 0.5. That looks more like what they have. Still, this is still not showing up as a center line. So maybe I'll go a little lower, 0.4 until it shows up. 0.3. Oh, those are not. Oh, I don't have them switched. That's why. Let's try that again. There we go. A little dense. I probably wouldn't go that dense. So I kind of keep manipulating it until I like it. I like it. Just by eye. Yeah. So this center lines really, they just have to extend past the object. And they could be too long. When I go to dimension it, they could be in the way and I'll shorten them up later. But I really did it just by eye. Center lines you can place, as long as you're directly on the center line of the object, you can place them and stick them out as far as you want. Just, you know, you got to do dimensioning, so you don't want them sticking out there too far. They'll be obnoxious. All right, so my object is drawn. Now I need to figure out what kind of scale I need to get it onto the paper. So this is a little bit tricky part. We're going to go to layout. And when you come to layout, you kind of get the default AutoCAD layout, which is 8.5 by 11. I mean, it is a size piece of paper, this thing, right? Both of them are. So notice there's two of them, layout 2, layout 1. Not exactly sure why they give us 2, but you can use either one of them. In layout 2, our object is showing up. In layout 1, our object is not showing up, and that's probably just zooming. Okay, so remember there's like these two spaces. There's paper and there's model, and we see that down here in the lower information bar. It says paper. If I click that, then it goes to model, and this is where the model is. Now, just because we can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. It could be a zoom factor. So if I, in model space, if I zoom, I can zoom the model. Oh, there it is. So it was just off somewhere else. When you zoom, it mucks up all the hidden lines. That could be just the zooming feature, or that could be paper space messing it up. That is what paper space can do. So I'm going to go back to model. Yeah, so it didn't clean it up. So let's look at it here. Notice like it's just different views. So this is the one I'd use. It's working pretty nicely, right? This one, the line types have kind of gotten lost in the resolution. I might be able to, let's see if regen. Yeah, regen did it. So I typed in regen and hit enter, and it just regenerates the drawing and recalculates everything, and that cleaned up the line types. So now both layout 1 and layout 2 is looking pretty good. You want it to look good here. If it doesn't look good, then it's going to look bad when you print it or when you make a PDF. All right, in paper space, so back to paper space I go. Now I'm manipulating the paper, not the object. I can't even grab the object, right? Can't do anything to the object when you're in paper space. You're basically working on the paper. So if I was to draw a line, all the lines I want, I'm essentially drawing on the paper, but not on the model. So if I go to model, all those lines I just drew, you won't see them because they're not in model space. They're in paper space. Okay, so kind of get used to these two different spaces and keep an eye on this, because if you want to put a title block on the paper, you want to be in paper space to do it. It won't mess with your model. Right, so I'm going to erase all those. Oh, I don't want to erase the viewport. That would be bad. Notice you can't erase the viewport though. So I can erase this viewport. If I hit delete, it's gone. Now, the model's not gone, just the viewport that allows me to see the model. The model's still here. So it takes a bit to kind of get used to this concept of paper space, model space. So if I can bring my viewport back, yep, I just undid it. All right, so I would drag this viewport out so I get to use all my paper. And that dotted line is kind of the default usable area of the paper based on, usually it's based on your printer, but we have not defined a printer. So it's just based on AutoCAD kind of default settings. But I want to use all the paper. If you know your printer, like in here, you don't, because you don't get to use that thing, but I do. I could go to layout and right click it, right click right on it, whoops. And then go to page setup. And I could look at the layouts and I could modify them. You notice that there's no printer identified. So if you're at home, you can put your printer in here and then it'll adjust these dotted lines, right? Because that's according to the printer. It's at some metric paper thing. So a lot of times if you're printing, you're going to have to switch that to this so your printer understands. But like here, I can actually choose my printer, which is this Xerox thing. And it'll adjust these dotted lines. See how it adjusted them out? So now I actually know the usable space and I can adjust this out even bigger to get even more space. You kind of want all the space you can get out of your paper. All right. Now, scale. To choose a scale, you need to be in model space. That's when the scales show up. So I two-click. That's how I get in and out. If you two-click out here, you go to paper space. If you two-click here, you go to model space. You can also just use this button, right? But here's the scales. Now, if I click the little triangle, I get to look at the standard scaling. 1 to 1 is full scale, 1 to 2 is half scale, 1 to 4 is a fourth of a scale or 4 times reduction, right? So when I choose those, it automatically changes the view to reflect that scale. So there's half, there's a quarter, there's a fifth, right? All of that's way too small. Actually, 1 to 1 would work. Notice that the line types get mucked up, but that's just from zooming. I'm going to use 1 to 2, just so I use some kind of reduction, just to show you how this works. That's how you choose it. You want to get the drawing done, then come into models or paper space, then go into model space while you're in this view, and then select your scale. Once you have that scale, then we're ready to dimension. So it's half scale. So now I'm going to go back to model. And you see this scale over here is still at 1:1. I want to switch it to 1:2. Now this scale is only going to affect things like dimensions, nothing else. So no zoom change when you're in model space. It's just telling the dimensions that we're going to use a half scale. Okay, and then the dimensions will size themselves. So that's super handy. So the way you figure it out, you go here, play with the zooms until you figure out the one you want, or the scales, right? 1:2, then go back to model, and then change it to 1:2. All right, now that you got that done, we can actually play with the dimensions. So it's under annotation. So there's no short way to go through all this. We just got to go through it all step by step. So that's why it's good to record it so you can look back and just kind of go through it slowly while you're working on your PC. Here, we want to set, so here's the different controls that we have for annotation. Annotation is text, right? So this is the dimension one right here, dimension style. This is text, like if we're going to place text. This is liters, if we're going to place a liter. And then this is tables if you're going to place a table. So the one we're worried about is this dimension style. So you can pull it down and you can choose something called annotative. So that means that little symbol right there means it's going to look at this scale down here that we just set, half scale. Okay. Now we also need to like set it up. So that's this button, dimension style. And then this is the dimension style dialog box. So we've got it to annotative, but it's looking kind of odd. Like the metric system places some strange looking dimensions, like 4,11. That's weird. But that's the metric system. They use comma instead of period, right? So I look at the drawing and go, okay, there's no decimals on this drawing. So if I want my dimensions to look like these dimensions on the drawing, I need to get rid of the whole decimal thing. So I'm going to go into modify. And then there are a lot of things in here. So just be very careful. Don't change things that you don't know, or you're going to really muck it up. It's going to show you the view of the dimensions here. So if I go decimal, that's good. I just don't want any precision. I'm going to leave it at 0. You can see that the little diagram gets updated. That's good. The other thing I notice is the dimension 60 is inside of the dimension line. And this one on AutoCAD is above the dimension line. You can control all of that kind of stuff. It's a little bit crazy how many controls there are. That would be under text, I believe. Yeah, and it says vertical placement above. So let's go centered, vertical placement centered, and it puts it inside the dimension line. So that's the kind of control we want. Like when I see dimensions like this, I want to make mine look just like this. You want to practice trying to control your dimensions to look exactly like the drawing given. Okay, that's pretty close. The radiuses look a little different. There's no shoulder here. So we could work on that, but for now, I'm just going to leave it. That would be under symbols and arrows and not center marks. This will be preceding dimension text, radius, close, fill, close. Yeah, I don't even see it right now. But the other thing you do want to do is in your text area, you want to put in your height. And I think on the exercise, I said 3 millimeters. So I'm going to change the text height to 3. So you want to put in there exactly what you want and know that the scaling is going to fix it for you. Because remember, we're half scale on the paper, but we want 3 millimeter text. We don't want 1.5 millimeter text. That'd be too small, right? So if you do it this way, it'll do it for you. So this should work. If I place a dimension, just throw one on like that, right? Or like this. So it can look big in this view. You know, we're kind of zoomed in. But if I go to layout, this is where it matters, what it looks like here, right? And that is 3 millimeters. in layout, and that's what we want. If the dimensions don't show up, your scales are not matching. Your model space and paper space scale is not matching. Okay, so that's the first indicator. If this is not showing up, like it shows up here, and then you go to layout and it's not there, that means your scales don't match. It won't show a dimension that doesn't have the matching scale of, we did 1 to 2 right here, and then over here I set it to 1 to 2, so they match. That's an easy step to forget. And let's look at the radius. So if I pull this linear down, I see some types of dimensions I can use under the linear note. Radius is one of them, so I'll just grab this outside one. So that's how it's placing it. It's a little different, right, than what the book has. It has this leader line on it. So again, if I wanted to try to fix that, I have to go into the style. I have to modify. And then I have to look for, it's probably either under lines. It's this line right here that I don't want, right? So beyond baseline, I'm just looking for it because I really don't know where this thing is. So it might not be here. Let's go back to symbols and arrows, center marks, none, dimension break. I think it's called a, yeah, I bet it's under fit. And it's called a force line. So I'm just going to go through and look at these options because it's going to show me the changes here. So it's not that. What I'm doing is I'm just looking at this dimension, trying to get it to tweak. I'm still not finding what I want to find. It's called a force line. Where is that? Center to center, left to right, offset from dimension, horizontal, ISO. Not, oh, draw frame, fraction height, nope. That's center marks. That's arrowheads, go to lines. These are the extension lines. That's these things. That's just going to take extension lines away, dimension lines. These are extensions. Yeah, I don't see force line. Oh, here's leader. Oh, that's just arrowheads. Arrowheads. Center marks, dimension break, arc length symbols, radius jog dimension, linear jog dimension. Yeah, I don't see it. I'll look one more time. I'm sure it's in here, but I don't see force line anywhere. There it is. Draw dim line between extension lines. Fine tuning is where it was under fit, right? I have it there. I get this force line. It used to be called force line. And if I get rid of it, it goes away. So that kind of tweaking is, it'll make you nuts because it takes a long time to find those kind of features. It took me a long time. Yeah, so I'll close and it'll look like that. So there's control to everything. I mean, once you see it and find it, then it works better. But so now I can go and just start placing. Theirs is horizontal. So if I wanted the text horizontal, there is a setting for that too. So that would be probably text. And here it is, text alignment horizontal. So then it looks like that. Say, okay, close. Now all the text is horizontal, this text and this text. So lots of different settings in there. I think I've shown you them all. The 10, when you put the 10 in, down in the lower left, it's going to automatically toss the 10 outside because, oh no, it didn't, it put it in. So that's not good. We should be able to move that one out by gripping. Come on, grip, and then grab the center grip and pull it out. And it'll look like that. If we want that, and then also this 10 inside, not going to do it. So our scale must be different than their scale. So outside's just fine. If you want the other direction, you drag it the other side and it'll plop the 10 outside. So it does that for you automatically when it doesn't fit. So if you're in model space and you zoom, it changes your scale. So be careful with that. Because now if I go to paper space and I back up, it looks like that. So a lot of times you'll have to go to model space and reset the scale to half, pan it where you want it. And it's going to look like that. And then maybe regen to get the line types to work correctly. So there's a lot to dimensioning. I don't want to do much more than that because that was a lot. But that'll get you through this exercise and give you an idea of how to set up dimensioning, how to make it show up. I also want a title block. So that means you're going to be in paper space and you just, once you're in paper space, you just draw it. So like maybe from this corner, right, go up. I don't know what they're doing. 0.375, I think is, whoops, that's right. This is millimeters. That's not going to work. So like maybe 15, I'll do some easy number like 12. How big is that? Yeah, that looks good. 12 come across, right? And then divide it up into some spaces because I think I asked for your name, the date, the scale, and the name of the lab, something like that. That information in the title block. So then just make sure you're in paper space. When you're in paper space and you use text, text is here. The easy one is single line text, right? And it says place the start point. So I'm just going to zoom in, place it here. And then it's going to ask you for like an angle to keep it on, and 0 is the default. So if you just hit 0, that's good. You can see the text height is down here in the dialog box, 2.5. So if we want something different than that, we got to put in 3, like that's what we want. And then 0 for the rotation, and then you can start typing. And that'll be 3 millimeter text. Okay. So this would be like, I don't know, lab 3.1. Right. And then I'd scoot over here somewhere and put my name, scoot over here somewhere and put the scale. What's our scale? 1 to 2. That's important. And then over here somewhere, maybe the date. 10, 13, 22. So notice I could just keep clicking and keep placing it. To get out of single line text, you just enter twice. Enter, and it places it. So you might want to be a little more organized than what I just did, but once you get it, you can move it around. So I could take this, move it here, take this, move it over here somewhere. It kind of lines things up for you automatically. That's kind of nice. Something like that. Those don't look lined up. Go up a little. Maybe separate this with some vertical lines. I'm not going to be too particular with how you do this. Just make it pretty and use 3 millimeter text. something like that. Little title block, all in paper space for the title block. So then it doesn't mess with your model, right? If you go to model, it's still just the model here. Any of this kind of stuff, title block, any notes, general information, would be in paper space to keep that model clean. I'm missing a dimension of 0.5, but you guys can get that in there. And this one doesn't belong, so. All right, that was a lot. I'm gonna stop and then field some questions in the room.